Hare Krishna. So today we'll look at the 18th verse of the second chapter. It goes like this. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Antavanta ime deha Nityasyokta sharirinaha Anashino prameyasya Tasmat yudhyasva bharata Antavanta ime dehaha. Dehaha means bodies. Antavanta means these bodies are perishable. Nityasya means that which is immortal, which is not perishable. Uktaha sharirinaha means the jivas are here referred to as sharirinaha because they have been, they are embodied beings. In other words, sharirinaha means who are having bodies. Those jivas who are having bodies, he's saying about them. They have bodies, yeah, but these bodies are perishable, not the jiva, he says. This looks quite like redundant in the sense that he has already mentioned this before about, though it may not be directly, he did mention about it that in the 12th verse that all the people here as well as you and me are always existing. There's no time that we never existed. So what is the need for saying it here is the question that arises, and we are going to see that. Anashino aprameyasya tasmad yudhyasva bharatva. Anashinaha means of the constant nature of aprameyasya. Aprameyasya means, prameya means which can be described in a nutshell. Aprameyasya means which can never be measured in any way. If you describe something, you will be telling its attributes and confining it in that attributes to one type of thing. But you cannot do that with this, he's saying. Aprameyasya is the name of God here. Aprameya means of that immeasurable, omnipresent being, who is actually the main controller of this jiva. Aprameyasya means of the being. What is of the being? Means that Anashina, the jiva, is a pratibimba or an image of that omnipresent being. Tasmat, therefore, yuddhasva, you have to fight. O Arjuna, he says. See, these bodies of the jivas are perishable. Jivas are eternal and constant. And they are the reflected images of God who is omnipresent. So he's saying the jivas are the reflected images of God. And hence you must fight. Because we already saw that God is pure goodness and he is never perishable. He is there pervading the entire universe everywhere, and he is immeasurable. All these things are told even in the word aprameyasya anashinaha also. Anashina also, who is free from all kinds of death or mutation or any type of imperfection. In every sense of that word, if you take it, he is anashinaha. And he is infinite in space, is infinite in time and attribute. So he is aprameya. So this meaning has been told by Acharya Madhvaru in Gita Tatparya as a different, as a way that the bodies of jivas, they may be perishable, they are perishable, but jivas are eternal. So if you ask how and what is the basis for the eternality, so they give that God is imperishable in the most comprehensive sense. Whatever ways you talk about it, his essence is eternal, his body is eternal, his gunas are eternal, means attributes are all eternal. He is never ever having any kind of bondage or suffering. He is not having any kind of dependence on anything. It's absolute perfection. So since he is of that type and he is your inner controller, you do fight, he says. So that's why you should get up and fight, he says. Because you are his impression or his image, you should fight, he says. So here the main thing that is being told here is a very important concept, That is the relationship between the soul and the all present, omnipresent, omnipotent God. So here they say that that image is only the jiva, means all these jivas are the images of God. So when we say image, what do we mean by that? Is a question that we that arises, no? So the image is told only for you to understand the relationship between these two things. Like for us, if we go and stand in front of the mirror, then we can see our image there. So the image and the object, what is the relationship we can see in that? So we have to see only up to a certain extent we can give this example to understand this concept of relationship between the jiva and Paramatma. In what ways do you think there is a similarity? We can see that if the object is raising the hand, the image also raises the hand. If the object blinks, then the image blinks. That's all there. And the object resembles whatever the object is like similarly only the image also looks like. Same thing. But the thing is, there is a lateral inversion. Then we know that if the object is having some nice flowers in the hand and they are all full of fragrance, then that doesn't happen with the image. Then the fragrance is being taken in by this person here in front of the mirror, and he's feeling that fragrance, the softness of the petals, and he's very happy about it, but that is not seen in the image. So what we can see is that the image is a limited expression of the main object, which is the in this case the person. But in this, what we are talking of in our context, God is the object and the image is the jiva. So image does not have the full capabilities of the object, even in our daily example. The same way only, the jiva is not having the same capabilities as God. God is omnipresent and all that we said just now, which we are not. We know that by experience only that we are not. We don't know what is in the other corner of the world. Even if we go there and explore also, we may not know. But everything is seen and known by that person who pervades everywhere because of his infinite power of being present everywhere at the same time. This is itself a concept which is beyond the mind of this, I mean, beyond our minds, because our minds are limited by that space and time. It's difficult for us to conceive such a entity who is beyond all this, who has no loss of any kind, and who is completely perfect in every way. So that relationship is explained in this verse as the person, that jiva has body, but the body is not the jiva. Body is subject to loss. The jiva's body is subject to loss, as it is told. The Charirinaha itself explains that. In Sanskrit, as I already told, the meaning of the words, no, they are itself disclosing the actual thing. What is it? Sharira means, Shara himsayam is one dhatu. Himsa means which is a hetu or which is a reason for some kind of suffering, limitation, and all that. And ira means to be inspired. So in this body, people experience discomfort, sorrow, maybe any other things also, including happiness and joy. But the Shara word tells that this subjects them to that kind of, suffering. And at the same time, they are inspired or they are being propelled to do certain things. They may not know that they are propelled. That is also one big thing that is difficult to understand. Really, am I being told to do a certain thing? Am I being propelled by someone else to do this and do that, or it's my own choice? So these choices and the feeling that what you're doing is actually being inspired by someone else is totally new maybe to you, but you have to observe it, you have to think about it and try to understand what is being said, because it's not easy. The first time when you hear it, it will be totally absolutely like, what is this? I am myself and I only get the thoughts. No one comes and inspires me in my mind. That's what everyone will say. But if you go beyond that, then you will know, yes, there is something more to it. which we will be coming to later on, not now. So let us understand this much, that all the souls are images of God, in the sense that they are dependent on him for their action, because that's how the image is, no? It will only raise its hands if the object raises the hand. It will open its mouth or laugh only when the object does so. But at the same time, it is not having the same kind of power, the same kind of experience as the object is having. Means whenever I say object and image, I mean a person in front of the mirror as the object, and his own image or her own image as the image. So this the sentient image object relationship is what we look at to understand our relationship with this almighty omnipresent God who is lossless. So this is mainly told uh, in this verse. So we can, I think, stop here for this. Hare Krishna.